Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Ed to order. The emergency exits are to the rear and the right and left of the room. Would you kindly call the roll, Taylor?
Yes. Robert Toman.
Here.
William Ball.
Here.
James Mooney.
Present.
Krista Barringer. Here. Christine Della Rosa. Here. Susan Gage. Here. Raymond Clary. Scott Holston. Here. Timothy Wells.
Here.
Please rise to the pledge. Our new student rep, Ava Earhart, is going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Earhart. A motion to approve the minutes of August 16th, 2022 and August 30th, 2022. Moved by Mrs. Gage. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wills. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Earhart, student rep report.
The first thing I want to know is how normal this year has already been seeming with COVID. And the second thing is we have a new parent drop-off system where we opened up 2 lanes, and Officer Winchell and administration helped make it faster for the parking to get through faster. And we have a new fundraiser where the seniors have the opportunity to paint parking spots, which is $5, and all money goes to the PTSA, which the PTSA pays for student events, and all the money goes back to the students. The last thing I want to point out is the new student government process, where the seniors this year are going through an interview process where we'll be videoed and interviewed, and then students will get to watch those interviews and then vote off of that. And officers will now participate in the building level team, where we just will be represented in those meetings.
We have a presentation on the New York State Reading Association conference.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to acknowledge both of our literacy coaches, Amanda Kovacs and Dr. Jennifer Slaber, have been asked to present at the New York State Reading Association conference in Syracuse. There's no greater compliment than for a school district to have some of its staff present to the state. So as you know, our focus a year ago when we brought in the literacy coaches, and when really are focusing on our elementary literacy program. This is just wonderful, and I want to acknowledge both of them. Once again, Amanda Kovacs and Dr. Jennifer Slaber, that will be presenting at the New York State Reading Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt. Public recognition, any member of the public wishing to speak on agenda items from tonight or the previous month, please approach the podium.
Somebody else's name is on this.
Test. So great to be here. Welcome. I know. Hey, cheers. Clap, clap, clap.
Your name.
My name is Katie Emerson Haas, and I live at 64 Washington Avenue, just down the road. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to be on this side of the mic. I actually really prepared for this meeting, probably more than I've prepared for other board meetings. I mean, I watched videos. It was great. I really want to thank the district for the updated mobile-friendly website that I've been exploring to find things. It's super easy. I'm just assuming that student learning is on every Board of Education agenda. And I want to thank our sort of new board learners, Della Rosa, Holston, and Trustee Ball, for your service, and really looking forward to another year of demonstrable leadership from this group. When I came onto the board, I was in the district, moved into the district in 2004, and so sort of lived through the crisis of, I think it was 2009, when we cut library arts and music, and pretty severely. And so since then, I've really been advocating to reinstate librarians in all of the elementary schools. So I really want to thank the district financially and, in terms of values, to have reinstated librarians, and that I'm really looking forward to hearing how we are effectively leveraging their expertise, right? So they are really experts, or should be, in media literacy and everything else. And so I'm really hoping that those are professionals that teachers really have access to help plan and to help develop their curriculum and implementation. And then I also wondered if there's room at Mount Marion for a preschool library, that the librarians might be able to sort of help set up in a little room, and then the teachers could take the kids there, like to a library trip, but it's all pre-K materials. I don't know.
We have it in the cafeteria right now.
Okay. Anyway, I just thought about that today. I was like, oh, maybe we could have a nice little preschool library. And I'm really looking forward this year to really hearing from teachers. I know professional development plan is on the agenda tonight. I did actually read it. I will say that it is one of the most readable and accessible professional development plans I've seen. And it was really easy to follow, and it was really easy to sort of make connections between what was happening in one goal and objective and what was happening in another. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing this year at public meetings from teachers about how they're benefiting from professional development and coaching, because I know we're investing a lot in coaching, which is amazing when it works, and really helps build sort of that professional community. And then I'm really looking forward to hearing from students at all levels about their learning. And there is an objective on the professional development plan and one of the strategies is to use formative assessment to inform instruction. I'm really interested to hear sort of how that goes, because I know that that's really challenging, but it's also really what makes a difference in supporting student achievement and well-being. And then thank you also in that plan for really identifying how the federal money is being appropriated and spent and where, and how that aligns with our values. I think that's it. I just wanted to, oh, and I really appreciate the Parent Bill of Rights. I think that's the first time it's actually appeared, maybe not the first time, but in the tech plan, the Central School District tech plan, that there is a Bill of Rights for parents for data privacy and security, and it's clear and straightforward, and I just appreciate that as well. So thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Dr. Haas. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to speak? None being heard, we'll move into the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I want to talk a little bit about opening day. Yeah, it was a little bit stressful this year. I appreciate everybody's patience and everybody that reached out to us. Once again, I can't thank enough for the job that Carol Petremol and Kristen Willem do with our routes and changing and everything else. But a couple of things I want to touch on. As far as food service, I want to remind everybody that we do have to resubmit your applications for free and reduced lunch. But also that can lead to the affordable connectivity problem, which was on our website Friday. So if you qualify for one, you could qualify for the other. If you have any questions on that, please reach out to your building leader. Once again, students are never denied a meal. So if there's an issue where a child's not getting a meal, please reach out to the building leader and we'll make sure that is solved. As far as time, if you're feeling that your child's not getting enough time to eat, either due to the length of the lines or the way the rotation, once again, one of the things we've constantly talked about and on our town halls is please reach out to the building leaders, right? They can't solve what they don't know. I have the utmost faith in our building principals, so please reach out. Quick enrollment updates. We're still at 53 sections. Our average class size at Riccardi is 20.9, Grantee Morris is 20.1, and Cahill is 20.9. Right now, we were able to maintain all of our 5th and 6th grade classes at 25 or less, and the district K6 average is 20.6. So that's pretty amazing. One of our goals is to restructure was the balancing, but also keeping our class size low. So I'm really, really happy about that. As far as transportation, it's been the buzzword. Actually, I was at a veterans event on Saturday, and I got to have a conversation with Congressman Ryan, State Senator Hinchy, and also Mayor Noble from Kingston. I mentioned to all of them that the state needs to start helping us out with transportation. It's tough, and everybody knows it, and there's some districts that are short drivers, some that are okay, but we don't want it to start being where drivers are leaving and going. So we really got to everybody work together and solve this issue for our students. But with that, we're going to keep adjusting routes. When I came over here, Kristen and Carol were still over there working on making routes shorter. One of the goals from the board last year when we redistricted was they wanted all bus routes to be under an hour. As of yesterday, our shortest route was 17 minutes, our longest was 45, and our average bus routes are 31. So for a rural district, that's pretty good. All the buses today left on time, and we're still working on some of the congestion down at McCarty. We think we have that worked out. The biggest thing is, please don't start lining up too early. The buses have to get down there, and the buses have to get down there safely. One other thing we are working on is we think that our transportation program can talk to our student information system, and if that's a possibility, we're hoping maybe to just send text out to specific routes that are running late, rather than have to send it out to the whole district. So that's something we're working on as well. And last thing is we will start up our town halls again. So this Thursday at 6:30 will be our town hall. It'll be just like last year. We just ask everybody to log on, put your stakeholder group, and then we'll do the best we can to answer as many questions in that hour. And the ones we can't answer, we'll hopefully get back to everybody. And that link is on the website now, right, Dan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt. Board member remarks. Any board member wishing to speak? Ms. Barringer?
Well, let me start with BOCES, and as I mentioned to board members in an email after my last BOCES meeting, which was on the 24th, I wanted to follow up with all of you just in terms of their professional development plan and some of the things happening at BOCES, and their focus this year is on equity and inclusion, and so every Monday, either in at the career and tech centers or our special education programs, they will be having specific trainings and discussions, and their topics include equity-based, performance-based learning and practices, literacy and pathways and programs, student engagement. There's lots of discussion about engagement versus attendance or just participation, like are we engaged. Neurodiversity with teaching and learning in mind, whole child meetings, neurodiversity with teaching, learning in mind, verifications again. So there's a lot of discussion and training being held at BOCES regarding inclusion, belonging, and equity. Another huge announcement that I believe I'm allowed to share because it was shared publicly with all of BOCES. Our superintendent of BOCES is retiring at the end of this year. So we will be entering into a superintendent search at BOCES, which will involve definitely all of our component district superintendents, including ours, to discuss the replacement. Part of that process, which I found really interesting, is that our president and our superintendent will be contacted by the state education department to determine whether Ulster County BOCES should remain, or if it should be merged with another BOCES, or if it should be dissolved. So the whole process starts with all 8 component districts discussing the need of a BOCES, the ability of a BOCES, and what you would be getting out of a BOCES. So I highlight that, so if there's discussions that we as a board want to have as a component with our board president and our superintendent, so that they can have a discussion and be prepared for that communication back to the commissioner. This would be the time to do so. So that's BOCES. I just want to get that all out of the way. As for those who know, I am the representative from this board to BOCES, so I want to make sure I'm fully keeping you all abreast of what's happening there. In terms of things happening here, I want to thank all that brought the first week of school together to make it happen, to bring home children who are happy and excited and engaged. That's our goal. And also just to highlight from my own personal experience, knowledge of some of the concerns people have expressed. And I've always said, very upfront, I see what's happening on Facebook. I see what people are saying. We don't respond because our bylaws indicate that we can't respond. But know that we're watching and we're aware of what people are saying. So even if people are not speaking in public comment period here, I believe I can say I'm watching and I'm aware, and it's not something that we're ignoring. But that being said, there are things that I guess frustrate me personally on social media that I can't respond to, but knowledge that we as individuals on this school board are doing our very best to ensure that we have leadership able to respond to the things that need to happen. And I guess it is a bit of an affront on social media to repeatedly see or read that board members are inept, are not doing their job, are not committed to the students of this district. So I just wanted to take a moment and a break to say it is very frustrating to hear those things in social media, and I would definitely really rather appreciate phone calls or communications so that we could better respond to individuals and not through a posting that is just angry and not really productive for our district. So that's all I want to share.
Ms. Bellarosa?
Sure. I guess first I'd like to thank the Saugerties and Hallandville. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I guess first I want to thank the Saugerties and Hallandville libraries for providing the summer reading programs that it does. Both libraries offered wonderful activities and incentives to read for students in this district. Additionally, the administration, the custodial staff, the secretaries, food service workers, and all the staff should be recognized for their tireless work over the summer months to have the schools ready for students in September, and I thank you. I would like to welcome back all the students and faculty and wish them a successful academic year. Although the first day experienced several issues, some of which were beyond the district's control, I think the torrential rain only added to the anxiety and the angst of that day. It seems that the issues with transportation were much better by the week's end. But as the district reflects on what worked well and what needs improvement, it is important to recognize that this year began under a very different set of circumstances due to the restructuring. There were practices that have been in place for many years that we maybe should revisit. For example, if transportation letters could be sent earlier, it may have alleviated some of the anxiety that families experienced, as many families were now attending buildings with different start times, and students had longer bus runs than previous years. Finally, at last month's meeting, we began conversations about identifying the rubrics and criteria which will help the administration and the board measure the success of achieving the objectives set out in the resolution approved to restructure the elementary schools. I hope those conversations continue and would want to formally request that the administration update the board on the actual savings achieved from the restructuring. The community was told that it would save $1.8 million, primarily through teacher attrition. And it would be helpful to have a projection to actual. If the district does not achieve those savings, it must impact the decisions we have in future spending, but the district won't be successful in closing the fiscal gap, which necessitated repurposing an elementary school.
Ms. Rudy?
Good evening. I just wanted to thank everybody for the reopening. We were able to meet with people that made it possible to have the buildings open, the buildings ready before school started, and they really deserve a round of applause or recognition, because without them, the buildings wouldn't be ready, and the buildings look great. I did look into the mailings. So they were sent out at the same time every year. Unfortunately, they left Saugerties post office, went to another post office, and then was delayed over the weekend. So they went out at the same time. You just got them because of the delay. Because it was, look, we dealt with this on the Labor Council, where mailings were being sent from Kingston to like Springfield, Massachusetts, and then back to Albany for mail that was going right within town. So that, these hiccups happened, but that wasn't the fault of the district. That being said, please be patient with the busing. I'm not talking about the routes. I'm talking about when kids are getting on the bus and off the bus. When you're driving, please remember that they're kids that are walking. They're less than 100 pounds. Your car is over 4,000. Thank you.
Ms. Gage?
Just want to start by welcoming all the new administration, teachers, and support staff. Nice to meet most of you tonight. I hope during the break I'll get to meet the rest of you. Welcome to Saugerties. You've selected a great district to work for, and I hope you'll stay with us for many years to come. It was really nice to hear a student rep say that it was a nice beginning to a normal school year, and we're just going to move forward with that. We're hoping that COVID is kind of in the rear window, although we know the winter months are coming, but hopefully mostly in our rear view mirror. I love the Saugerties Newsletter that came out. I hope you all got it. I loved how it broke down all the information on our schools, but then it broke down all of the teachers, what building they were in, what grade they were teaching, if they were special ed or RTI math. Again, I think BOCES does most of this for us. Am I right? Yes, they did a great job. I think as a parent, I would have loved getting this when my kids were in school. And finally, just thank you to everyone in the district. I know a lot of people think that nothing happens over the summer, and as a former district administrator, I know how much happens over the summer, so thank you to everyone from administration on down to custodial. You do so much over the summer to get us ready to start another school year, so here's to a great school year here at Saugerties. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Wells?
First off, I'd like to welcome everybody back. Thank you to the administration, school leaders, students, and staff. It's good to see everybody back. It's good to see the sports out there. As I kind of came into the high school this afternoon, it's good to see kind of everybody out there, the kids, being out there together, no restrictions, kind of playing sports. It's really nice until the monsoon hit this afternoon, of course, and it wasn't so fun for them. The bus issues. Obviously, we kind of saw what happened this week. I actually was standing out in the rain myself when it happened, and my daughter's bus was a little bit late as well. But given everything that's going on in the world today, it's a lot of stuff that is not necessarily within the district control. We can't help a monsoon. We can't help an accident in town. We can't help having new bus drivers that are kind of just learning their routes as well. So it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get in the groove, just as any new position is in a way. I personally started a new job a couple weeks ago, and I'm still trying to get into the groove of that. So it's I think for the students, for the teachers, for the staff, to kind of all get into a groove together, get to know each other, kind of start to mesh and work together as one to kind of continue to move forward. I was excited to hear that our student rep did mention a normal school year, as Ms. Gage said. That is something I've been waiting for the entire time I've been on the board. As I've been on the board, it's been riddled with COVID, unfortunately, and a lot of masks and a lot of this and social distancing and everything like that. So it's nice to kind of see a normal year for these kids finally. And I know there's definitely some changes at the elementary level, but I do think that in the big picture, the grand scheme of things, it's going to be good for our students as a whole. I think we're looking to kind of continue to move this district forward, giving a lot of other opportunities that weren't necessarily there for our students, and I think that's pretty amazing. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what this year brings. I know somebody mentioned being a little bit patient. We don't want to, just kind of lose our minds sometimes and go on Facebook and be very upset, as Trustee Behringer said. We are watching that. We do see these. I got off of Facebook just because I didn't want to see it all, but I still get the opportunity to see it. We do see what you guys are saying. We are taking that to heart. We are having discussions amongst each other. We are bringing stuff up to the superintendent to kind of get some sort of understanding of what's going on. So when the emails or calls come from you, we can maybe try and give you some sort of an intelligent answer ourselves. I'd much rather, as Trustee Behringer said, you guys give me a phone call or shot me an email. I never, when an email is directed at me, I've never not responded. So I'm more than happy to be, I feel like I'm somewhat approachable. I'm more than happy on the break to come and talk to me if you have any concerns or issues you'd like to bring up to me as well. And I will be more than happy to relay them back to the board. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Tolman. Congratulations and welcome to all the new employees. It was a really nice opportunity to be able to meet and say hello to some of you. And for those of you that I might not have been able to greet personally, know that I know my thoughts are with you as you embark on this, what may be for some of you the first experience teaching in public schools. So congratulations to all of you. Regarding opening day, I appreciate the invite to the events here at the high school, and it was good to see so many people that I knew from a past life, and in some cases not necessarily a past life, but to really kind of revel in that opening day revelry, so to speak, the energy, the enthusiasm that exists. It's kind of just, it's combined with that nervousness, the butterflies in the stomach, and I know that all teachers and even administrators do get that, so it was nice to see and be a part of that. I was also very fortunate to be able to attend a football game as well as get up here during the week and see the fields filled, and it's something I say fortunate because it's my great misfortune that apparently, our last kid graduated many years ago, and so that all ended for us. So it's nice to see, and I know the boys on the football team, well, I apologize, I don't know if it's exclusively boys, but I know they had a hard loss and a tough couple of weeks, but it's still good to see the students back in some level of regularity. I was able to attend a facilities committee meeting. That's the first of a committee meeting that I've been able to participate in. I'm looking forward to being able to participate in that as we go forward. Regarding opening day and social media, I worked with a wonderful person many years ago named Charlotte Gregory. She was a superintendent from Western New York, and she was esteemed in many circles, and she had an extremely lengthy career. And she would oftentimes talk about opening day, and in fact opening week to a certain degree, and she would say it comes down to tacos, transportation, and tops, referring to obviously the school lunch program, busing issues, and tops referencing dress code. And social media really has not really changed any of that, because I think she said that 20 years ago. So I want to just kind of share and kind of chime in on top of what Ms. Behringer said and Mr. Wells. I personally appreciate that people have the opportunity to share in social media, and I use share loosely because sometimes it is just venting, and that's okay. It really is truly okay that people use that, a place where they're comfortable to vent. What I appreciate most is that on a number of these issues, I'm beginning to see other community members weigh in with, some information that they had gathered from a previous meeting, or some information that they had gotten from a previous conversation with a school administrator, or in some cases, individual that originally posted saying, well, I've had a chance to finally speak to a school administrator. And so seeing some of the angst and agita in some of these posts actually begin to resolve themselves by the time the post ends. It's an ugly process to a certain degree because people are upset, but it's a process I think that is pretty important, and I appreciate the district's approach and tone towards responding to these concerns. Again, I know they're not unique to Saugerties or unique to this particular opening day, But I do encourage all folks, that may see this, like Ms. Barringer, like Mr. Wells, to, venting's one thing, but reach out to your school administrator. All right, they're always going to be your first cause, or pardon me, your first resource, your first best resource. Quite honestly, I will always return a phone call. I will always return a text. I will always return an email. But I'm not going to be your best first resource for most of the issues that you have dealing with any building level issues. I want to just remind people of that. That's just my sentiment regarding social media. The only other thing I want to add is that being on the board, and this is a new thing, Mr. Wells, Tim talked about getting into the groove as a board member. I can tell you that the groove hasn't happened yet. But one of the things that we have the opportunity to get are these newspapers from New York State School Boards Administration, School Boards Association. And oftentimes we're actually even at an even greater advantage because we get to read them a second time if they're emailed to us. But one of the things that this particular article talks about is establishing a strong board superintendent relationship. And it talks about things like getting on the same page about success, being committed to ongoing communication, doing what it takes to develop rapport, understanding roles and responsibilities, and being a team. I know that our election only took place in May. I know that I have spoken out about several things that I'd like to see to help us get on the same page, and efforts that I have made to develop rapport, to establish some form of two-way communication, and I'm hoping those efforts are going to be ongoing. One of the things I continue to look forward to is a school board retreat, when we have the opportunity to do that and really have some candid conversations. And I know that is still in the works for planning, and I hope to keep you abreast of that as we go forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? I will move into board president remarks. When I got here and got to meet some of our new staff, I was approached by a young lady, Anna, who's over there with the AV, and she is doing a project that she mentioned that she's going to interview Mr. Reinhardt for what it's like to be a superintendent. She wanted to interview me for what it's like to be on the board. One of the things I do is I tend to think ahead. Now that we're meeting at school reopening, my mind already leaps ahead to the budget process and so forth. So I started thinking about, that's an interesting question. How do you respond to what it's like to be on the board? Ms. Barringer talked about one side of it, and Mr. Wells about seeing stuff on social media, just kind of ripping us apart. I remember, I think there was a gentleman last year who put out on social media and actually came to a board meeting and told us he pays our salary. Well, we still haven't seen a check yet for that. So there's that aspect of it. But as I thought about Anna's question about what it's like to be on the board, and I looked out tonight and I thought about being at the football game last week, being at school on the opening day, being at the barbecue for staff who's worked so hard to get things together over the summer. It's really about the relationships you establish. If there's one blessing about being on the board, it's all the people here tonight that I've gotten to know that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten to know if I wasn't on the school board. It was about seeing student success, about having people approach me and talk about, hey, I really like to see some of the changes that are implemented. Hey, that 90% graduation rate last year, that's fantastic. What are you guys shooting for this year? So, and when we get to talk, we'll be talking about relationships with people and how, as a member of the community, you get a privilege to interact with many more people than you do. I mentioned the barbecue, which was probably a good lead-in for the retreat that we're hoping to have, which will probably be early in October. I was there, Mr. Moody was there, Ms. Bellarosa was there. I got to learn an interesting detail that Ms. Bellarosa lived in Dublin for what, 4 years, something like that. 4 years. And it was a nice informal way, but what really, and I would encourage other board members, if there's a chance to come out to that again next year, you really see the dedication of the maintenance staff, the clerical staff, the transportation people, even our school resource officer, who work continuously to get things in shape. They work behind the scenes, they're not often seen, but they're genuinely appreciative of the work and the efforts that they see taking place in the district. I think that's about it. I'm glad that things took off at the beginning of the year as good as they could be. I'm looking forward to a lot of positive reports from our new elementary sites, and I think it's going to be a good year as long as we don't get flooded out. So with that being said, I think Mr. Wells mentioned about a break, so we'll take a short break. If you guys want to have some coffee and cookies and then head out early, you're not going to be missing much of stuff afterwards. Thank you.
share with all of you the summer learning that happened with our students and with our administrators. And all of the summer learning that happened would not have happened without our incredible administrators, principals. So thank you so much to Mrs. Vale, Mr. Molyneux, Mrs. Molyneux, Mrs. Pipitone, who ran all of our summer programs, and also Dr. Kapler, who ran our Title III Summer Academy for our L's, because we had an incredible summer of learning. So I just want to share briefly some of the highlights of our different and various programs. There's our crew there and our leadership. So we're going to start off first just providing some highlights of our academic summer school in grades 7 through 12. What was great was that we offered a traditional academic summer school for grades 7 through 12, but also offered the ability for students to have a flexible model through our credit recovery lab through the APEX software. So you can see on the right the courses that were offered. In both academic summer schools, 7 through 12 and K through 6, we were really focused not just on the academic growth, but also on the social, emotional, and mental growth as well. It was embedded every single day. Here are some of, yeah, go ahead. Here are some of our Regents exam results. Certainly the special appeal is helping our students, which will go to 2003. And you can see that with algebra, you know, our pass rate was 88%, which was significant. So we have two purposes, particularly in 9 through 12 academic summer school. One is either course acquisition of credit, or they need to pass the Regents. So these two charts here show the students who were accruing course credit. And so for the senior high, 88% of our students accrued credit, and the junior high, 93% accrued credit. In our secondary program, we had a social worker that went into the classrooms. And you'll see that this was embedded, and she worked with the students daily through restorative circles on all of these topics. And if you think about our students who come to academic summer school, this is really the real learning, right? They come in, they have to sit in a subject that they know they already feel like a failure. They may not like it. So this is so important, and Mrs. Vale and Mr. Molyneux were really, you know, convicted to make sure that this was part of their learning, and it was very successful. And that little circle there is, you'll see it again. Those are the standards for the CASEL's social, emotional, and learning. So on to our summer academy, which is our academic summer school for K through 6, which Mrs. Molyneux was the principal for. She had support with Mrs. Pipitone, and I'll get to that in a little bit, with roles. Keep going. So with our elementary students, this program was only 3 weeks long. This is a really short amount of time. So we had to get very focused about what our goal was and how we were going to do it. So this is what we did. We wanted to avoid the academic slide because many of our students, you know, some of them don't have parents that are reading to them, some of them are not going to the public libraries. So we want to keep the literacy going. Our focus was literacy and math. And what we did was we looked at the iReady data, and we used that data to inform our instruction. So for literacy, we knew that based on the iReady data, our deficits were comprehension and vocabulary in grades 3 through 6. And based on the iReady data for K through 2, it was phonics, and comprehension again. So we took those standards, gave them to the teachers, and for 3 weeks, these are your priority standards. This is what you're focusing on. So it kept us really tight. And with math, according to the data, we needed to focus on geometry and numeracy and algebraic thinking. And then I added in fluency because if they're there, and think about it, if you're struggling in math and you're in 3rd grade and learning your times tables, you gotta learn. So this was a perfect opportunity to do that. So that's how we kept a 3-week program focused. And on the next slide, Shannon did a superb job of really capturing the growth here. We did a pre-test and a post-test. So when they came into us and then when they left, and you can see that there was enormous growth just in 3 weeks. And so to me, this is evidence of using the data to inform instruction and using the data to have a very clear focus works when you're running very short academic programs. So the other thing, we had an orientation for all of our teachers. And for both the academic K-6 program and the summer enrichment program, we had a theme of wonder. And the reason why we had a theme of wonder is, again, we wanted to pull these students in who may not like school or who may be struggling or reluctant readers. And we want them to enjoy the joy of learning. So just, I mean, if you think about when you were little and that first hot night in late June, maybe early July, and you catch a lightning bug and you're wondering, how does this little insect glow? And so that was our symbol. And we had a summer of wonder, which gave the teachers to have freedom for inquiry-based learning. So here we have a 6th grade class, 1st grade class. They were looking at objects. This was an orange juice container, a juicer, right? A juicer. And the 6th grade students came down to the 1st grade class as well. So each day they had an object, and they had to wonder, what does this object do? And what does it mean? Again, in our elementary, it was absolutely imperative to have daily embedded social emotional learning. So here we have both the social worker and the nurse providing cell and mental health education and health lessons. And here were the identified topics. Also, the students chose 2 trusted adults to go to if they needed help. And there's that image I was just talking about. So now we're going to move on to the summer enrichment program. I was fortunate enough to have an administrative intern, Trish Picatone. So her charge was to help me lift this program. She did an excellent job lifting it, doing the PR, and this was a pilot program. We really weren't sure how the community was going to react. We weren't sure if students were going to come. We weren't sure if the staff wanted to do it. But here's what happened. Our goal was to engage students through inquiry-based learning, particularly in STEAM topics, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and humanities like drama, music. And the theme was wonder. We had 212 students enrolled, so that tells us something. You can see the breakdown, and we had 12 teachers and 3 TAs, and you can see what was really cool about this was we sent out proposals in the spring. What are you passionate about is what went out to the staff. What do you want to teach? If you could teach anything, what would it be? And we gave them a lot of freedom. There's a lot of freedom within STEAM and humanities. And these are some of the courses that were offered. We had Chinese writing, the Hudson River Discovery, drama. We had a small music academy, the STEAM That was during the hottest week of the summer and was packed. And every time I went in, the kids were hands-on, minds-on, so excited, building gumdrop structures, weight-bearing, that it's so cool. And all of those pictures, I'll show you some pictures right now. Here was the marshmallow drop. And here's some of the feedback. And now I'm going to play the trombone, even though I'm wearing contacts because you can't read the small print. Here's some feedback that we heard about the program. One parent said, my two oldest sons in 4th and 6th grade just completed Spanish as a summer enrichment course last week. It was very successful. They haven't been that excited to learn in a very long time. Go on to the next one. And here's what students had to say. I had so much fun in each of the classes that I took. Chinese writing was so cool. Each day we learned something new. I'm so glad I went. Mom, I had so much fun. We did so many activities and I got to see some friends that I didn't think I would have seen over the summer. I'm going to do this program again. And here's some more parent feedback. Kudos to Mrs. Pipitone and her team that made this program an option for our kids this summer. It was a great introduction to learning something new while they had fun. I hope this program continues for years to come, and so do we. Here's a little collage of all the different programs that we had. We also had a really cool, all of them are really cool, but movement and dance, and that was fun too. I wanted to join in. I may have a little bit from time to time. So the other group that did a lot of learning this summer were our own administrators. And we kicked off our learning at the Mid-Hudson Leadership Institute, which is run through Ulster BOCES. I used to be the director of it, and they brought in keynote speakers who were inspiring and practical and really inspired us to be lead learners and come back to our core and our why and inspire teachers to always remember our why. We did a lot of visioning through an activity called the Portrait of a Graduate, and you need to do visioning because our kindergartners are graduating in 2035. So what worked when I went to school at Roosevelt and Hyde Park is not going to work for a graduate in 2035. So what happened was we focused on adult learning. We focused on the fact that if we are preparing our students for 2035, our principals need to be lead learners, faculty meetings need to be a culture of learning, and the principals need to lead by example. We gave them tools. At the secondary level, they turnkeyed the Portrait of a Graduate. At the elementary level, all three elementary schools did the same thing on opening day. So while some schools may focus on a really big keynote or big bands, we were really heavily focused on the building level. We had to build collaboration that first day, particularly in elementary. We need to bring people together through that and start our visioning process. And at the elementary level, they did an activity of the collective resume, which is, we could even do it right here. How many years have you been in education, which would be a lot. What are your skill sets you have? And you bring them all together and it's, wow, look at this. And I think even on the Morse webpage, it might even be posted, I think. So I'm pretty sure I read that. So how many years of experience do you remember?
It's well over 1,000 years of experience at Mars.
Yeah. So that's a really cool activity to do. And then we have a philosophy of literacy here in Saugerties. And all three of the elementary schools use that philosophy of literacy as like their North Star for where we're headed this year and did an activity. So that's a lot in and of itself. And we bestowed a lot of high expectations. But my point is, they rose to the occasion, and it was an incredible day of learning. As we always do, as we're always charged by our superintendent, we did SMART goals. We always do data analysis and dialogue. We will continue. The SMART goals are set collectively through the BLTs, but they're going to find out tomorrow they're also going to choose one leadership goal too. And then they made a commitment. So it was an excellent retreat. And there was one moment I looked up at the Mid-Hudson Leadership Institute. We were all sitting together, and I thought to myself, this is the crew. This is the best team I've ever worked with. Everybody's so invested in learning themselves and here in Saugerties. So where to now? So we had this incredible summer of learning. Where might we go? What do we need to improve upon? So this year the enrichment program was a pilot. It was a success. So let's grow it. Let's do more. So that's what we're hoping to do. To do that, we need to develop some mechanisms for more streamlined PR. We need to continue using the data to inform standards-based instruction, because as you saw in the K through 6, that works. And many moons ago, Mr. Reinhardt and I did similar things with Regents in the summer program at Ulster BOCES. And you know, when you have a theme, it creates some fun and excitement, so we should continue that and certainly continue our administrative professional learning. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of your support with our kickoff and throughout the summer. We certainly feel it. And if you have any questions, I'm here to take them. Yeah.
I have a couple.
Okay.
I understand for science there's a seat time component in order to sit for the exam. As far as the summer program went, was credit recovery part of that?
For science, can you tell me a little bit more about your question?
So I believe you have to have a certain number of labs, and you got to have a certain number of attended days in order to sit for the exam. I was just wondering if credit recovery was an integral part of the summer program for some of those kids.
Science, wouldn't be a recommended course.
Okay.
And I've had this conversation with Mr. Reinhardt, who's taught physics, and we're both on the same page. You know, labs are hands-on, minds-on activities, and to be standards-based lab, you really need to be in person. So it would have to be some outrageous exception.
Okay. Second question. I was very impressed with.
Can you use your microphone?
I'm going to start singing. Fighting a migraine. Sorry, I think my sugar is finally stable. The baseline assessments, I was really impressed with the results, the summative results at the post level. I was just curious. The time frame, I guess that's summative for the whole course.
So for the elementary or the...
I'm guessing secondary. I do not know anything about that. I don't know what called elementary.
Secondary was a 6-week program, summative for the course, and elementary was 3 weeks summative for that
So
course.
those results were 6 weeks. Wow, that's really impressive. And just lastly, I enjoy your excitement. I really do. It's refreshing. It's recharging. I would like to see these programs, if we can, at the 3 elementary schools. You know, different sites. Next summer, if we can do that. I don't know what's involved, but I think if there's this much buy-in from the community and from students and from parents, I would definitely support expanding it. Thank you.
As you know, through some of the CARES Act, we do have an enrichment program that's extended school day, and we're actually meeting with the elementary principals tomorrow, so that will start soon. So not only will we have the extended school day due to learning loss due to COVID, we also have a percentage of the money that we can use for enrichment after school. So that'll be going in. We'd love to be able to continue these programs over the summer.
Thank you. One quick question, sorry. Your presentation's outstanding. Loved everything about it. Very clear, except for one thing, and just as someone who's not an educator, on slide 3, Regents exam results, you have pass rate grade of 65, or a greater. Pass rate special appeal. What is
Special appeal is a temporary appeal for this year and next year. So for students who fall under certain criteria. So if they're above a 50, from a 50 to a 64, they can get a special appeal if they have taken the Regents prior. And there's a few other criteria. But essentially, it's really helpful right now when you think about how our students have been home during COVID or in and out in hybrid. So that's why the state created the special appeal for this year, and it's extended to 2023.
And just so I understand, this isn't just a special pass. It's that we're taking in a lot of other considerations, not just a grade, which ideally we'd love to see in all kinds of structured grading. That it's not just the grade; it's all the other.
There's set criteria by SED.
Great. Thank you.
Can I just add, there's also, a committee has to meet on each individual child, on each individual case as well. So it's not just, oh, okay, this kid, we can pass them. It has to be well documented, and it is submitted to the state.
Yes, and Mr. Reinhardt, he's the final signature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Roback. I'll entertain a motion to approve items K1 through L3F. Moved by Ms. Gage, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mooney. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Business officer recommendations, I will entertain a motion for item M1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So moved by Mr. Mooney, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wells. Discussion? Ms. Dolorosa?
So I just wanted to just highlight M2. There was what was put out there was called the Revenue and Appropriation Status Report, and Jane gave a really good explanation of what that report was during our July meeting. And just because this was the last report for the year, I spent some time looking at it and had asked Jane some specific questions on it, which she answered for me, and I just wanted to sort of just let you guys know kind of what I saw and the information I received, and Jane can correct me if I misspeak on anything. But basically what that report showed was that the expenses that we budgeted for the year, the actuals came in at about $2 million less than what we budgeted, plus any adjustments that were made during the year. So that asked me to say, well, why are the actual expenses less than what we had budgeted for? And so Jane was able to provide a number of explanations. One of which was, our insurance company, the health insurance provider for the district gave the district a premium holiday. So there was 1 month where the district didn't actually have to pay the medical premiums, which was is a big, medical insurance is a big expense for the district. There was some savings on transportation, or maybe because of bus driver shortages, routes weren't run, or things to that nature. When we go through the budget, the employee retirement service contribution rates are estimated based on what history has been, but the rates actually don't come out until August, so there's, differences there that will impact the budget, budgeted expenses. Those were the main ones. I don't know if Jane, you wanted to.
So the retirement system also is the employee's retirement system, and it flows along with a different fiscal year than our year. So I know what the percentage is going to be for 3/4 of that of the following budget year. I don't know what the percentage is going to be for the last quarter, and we don't get that until August or September. So we just got the new rate for next year, but only for 3/4 of the next budget year. So I don't know what that last quarter is going to be until after the budget's already done. So I just estimate, and it's been up and down recently. It doesn't follow. It's not very nice, right? It's up and then it's down. So that's the explanation on that. So usually I do a little bit of an explanation for the board following the auditor's presentation, and they go through it all, and they talk about if they have surplus or deficit and how things are looking, and then I would give my reasons behind the differences.
Right.
But
Thank you for your help.
Any other discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Board action discussion items. I'll entertain a motion for item N1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Moved by Mrs. Gage, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Olson. Discussion. None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor
I
say
just have a question, or two. Apologize. Regarding the side letter of agreement, is this a one-time stipend? Is this obviously, something we hope ends? Is this related to the money that we're providing, federal monies?
Yeah, this, sorry. It's yearly.
Okay.
So this will be the third year, and we negotiated, once again, it'll sunset, and we'll decide next year if this is a position. I don't know if Dr. Kapler's still being busy or not with this. We found out Friday afternoon, of course, late, that once again, we have to do all our reporting, and contact tracing and stuff is limited, but once again, we have to negotiate every year with HASP, but it'll sunset again, and then we'll decide whether, but it does come out of the federal funding. So a portion of the money we can use for administrative.
Thank you. Yep. I did have another comment / question I wanted to just raise about the technology plan. I think it's a great looking plan, as far as technology plans go. Certainly I've seen a couple of them. One of the things that the technology plan mentions is the reference, the resource material for the plan. In many cases, or at least the lead resource, was the International Society of Technology and Education. And when you review the site for the International Society of Technology and Education, they include pretty substantial discussions about how cell phones can be used in instruction. And I'm just curious, if you could give us some sense of where the conversations are relative to, on the one hand, we know we want the students to be in classroom, not distracted by their cell phones, and everything that comes with that. On the other hand, knowing that cell phones can be a useful instructional tool with the right supervision and guidance. So how do we balance that, or what are the conversations that are taking place about that? Because I just don't want to see us throw out the baby with the bathwater.
I 100% agree, and I think you just said the conversation. I think that's where we have our building leadership team, where we meet with our teachers, and we say, okay, so in my class, I'm teaching seniors, and I can use formative assessment, and I can quickly do a do now on my phone and get the data right away. There are some excellent tools. So I think you're right. We don't want to sit and say they're totally gone, but I think we need to have a conversation of how is it being used, if is it being used properly, and when it's being abused, what are the next steps? But I think, you know, that's the advantage of having the building leadership team and the department chairs of, okay, if this is a technology that we think is going to benefit student learning, what are the outcomes? How is it being successful, and how are we monitoring it? Because you're right, there are some great apps for a teacher to quickly see how the students are doing, how they can share work, how they can put information out on homework. You know, if a kid's friend is sick, he walks in, he takes a photo of the homework assignment, sends it to his friend, so they're not a day behind. So I agree, and those conversations have to have, so we don't go back to nothing or it's free game. And I think we have to be able to have those conversations and trust that our teachers have that subjectivity and that leadership to decide today they're away, but when we're doing this activity, it's like calculators. They're a tool, and they're a tool for learning.
So that's something that it's an individual teacher discretion, or we're right now in the midst of the
I think we need to be coming out of COVID where we had the Chromebooks, where we needed the technology because we were streaming classes in Google Meets, to now what does that look like when we're back in person? You're right, we don't want to go back to where we had no technology in the room, but we also have to bring it back to where learning centers that are a little bit more traditional. So I think you're right, we're at the beginning of those conversations, and what does that look like? And it's obviously, it's going to look like for different grade levels, because we should have a different expectation of independence for a junior and a senior as independence for maybe somebody who's in 5th and 6th grade.
I agree with that, and there is a continuum of use and appropriateness of use, and I think that if that's the case, I mean, that's fantastic. I'm excited to hear that. I think our parents will need to hear how we're moderating the two, right? Because I envision that that's probably at some point in the future another tangent that we could go off on, you know, in terms of conversations outside of board meetings.
If I could just add, I believe this was also something that was discussed in the policy committee. I think there's also some policy items on top of this, and I just, I'm 100% with you. When I was the same, like, you know, the technology that's in somebody's pocket sometimes is better than what we have at the table. So, in understanding that, respecting that, I also have learned how difficult it is for the teachers to have to balance and provide education to the student who has a computer that is like a Macintosh in their pocket, to a student at the same time, a student that doesn't have technology in their pocket at all, or has a phone that doesn't have Wi-Fi access, that currently doesn't have, you know, for whatever reason it's not connecting. So that teacher having, so I guess I just also want to respect and value our teachers' ability to have to balance every student and their abilities. Now we're also going to talk about, well, the AT&T that does connect, but the Verizon doesn't, and so I agree, but how do we also, as a board, help our teachers be able to do this in a curriculum way? Because through COVID, one of the things we really learned quickly was teachers are having to put together packets for students who weren't able to access computers for whatever reason at the same time that they're providing instruction to those who are online and immediate. So I really want to value and respect the diversity of how we have to do every instruction in every moment of the classroom. So I just want to put that part of that too.
I agree. I agree entirely, and I have a lot of faith in our instructors, and I believe discretion is something that they can and should be, you know, afforded when making those kinds of decisions. It's that discretion piece is a challenge to explain to the community at large. That in some instances, Mr. Ball may not agree with the use or doesn't have the capacity to provide cell phone lessons, but Mr. Wells does. And you know, it's always going to be the case, right? No one classroom is going to be the same as the other, and we value that. We value that academic independence. We value that discretion that our teachers have. But you know, how we can communicate that best to our community so that they understand, you know, there are differences, and we're not talking out, you know, two sides of our thoughts. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Committee reports, audit committee, I believe you guys have a date for a meeting?
Yes, we are looking at October 11th, I believe at 5:30 for our first meeting. And then we'll look at scheduling board after that. But that's right before our next board meeting here, so that it'll be here, and then we'll move right into our board meeting. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes. But we'll have it there and then move into the school board meeting.
Okay. Facilities committee?
We met on September 7th, and basically we're going over the groundwork as to where we're going to be. We're probably going to have a lot more information at the next meeting, but as of now, I received an email today at 20 after 3 that the Grandview Morse plan has kind of gone through the state. It was kicked back with just one question, and then it was resubmitted. So that's good. So that's an excellent first step. So hopefully we'll have more information on the different phases of that project. And we're just looking at how we can spend our smart schools money and reevaluate different priorities as far as projects going out to bid now that the climate has kind of changed and prices are starting to go down and supply chains are starting to get replenished. Hopefully we can get more work done based on that. Our next meeting will be here. We're either going to be in the conference room or in here, depending on how many people show up. So I'm guessing we're going to be in the conference room, and that will be October 5th at 4:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. Policy committee, Mr. McClary is not here today. Mr. Reinhardt.
No, thank you very much. So just want to kind of put a plug in for the policy committee. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the dress code and all of those items, which is wonderful. The dress code is a subcomponent of the code of conduct, which falls under the policy committee. So we're hoping to have our next policy committee meeting on September 27th. We'll put the time out for that. So we'd like to invite anybody who would like to be part of that. The board does revisit the code of conduct every year. The last couple of years has been difficult to actually dig it apart because of COVID. But hopefully this year we're hoping to have a subcommittee of the policy committee to kind of really dig deep into the code of conduct. We do need people K through 12 though. A lot of times our committees it's great to have an older stakeholder group, but I'd also like to have some stakeholders from our students as well as our staff and family members that are K-6 to kind of look at that. And we can also go through our BLT. So hopefully we'll get that out, but we're hoping to have that meeting on September 27th. I know some of you were part of the attendance committee. We went through pretty much word by word. That was about 2 years ago, and rewrote the entire attendance policy. So we'd like to kind of do the same thing. But once again, we need people to join that because that's pretty deep work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt. Public recognition. Any member of the public wishing to address the board, please approach the podium, state your name and residence, and feel free to speak to us.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, is that better? Okay. Hi. Maria Delaraco, I'm a parent of an 8th grader. First, I would like to say thank you to Krista Behringer for mentioning that it is in your bylaws not to get involved in the Facebook drama because I have no idea. And that silence can be deafening if you are not aware of that. I do have a question on the dress code. I know it was approved back in July and that the high school has started assemblies, the junior high is scheduled next week for assemblies, and there seems to be a lot of miscommunication and different information at each assembly. So my question is, are we expecting a new dress code to be rolled out because of these assemblies, or are these assemblies based on the dress code that was approved in July?
Yeah. Yeah, we will roll out what's in the code of conduct, and if there's a revision, that'll be the one that'll be rolled out.
Okay.
Because
so-
nothing can change until a committee puts it
Right,
together, the
okay.
committee then presents it to the board, and then the board has to have a hearing on it, and then it's voted on.
Okay, so these assemblies should be based on what was approved in July. Am I
Yes, ma'am.
understanding that? Okay, perfect. I know you guys said sometimes you read what's been going on, so I'm sure some of you know. I just wanted to get clarification so I can pass that information along. So that was all, thank you.
Anyone else? We don't have an executive session, Mr. Reinhardt, for tonight, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Mooney, is there a second? Second by Mr. Wells. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you for coming out tonight.
What is that?